All right, welcome to Back to the Basics. We're going to give you some updates on the UNFCCC, and today I'm talking with Mima Mendoza from the Philippines. We're going to talk about mitigation and adaptation. So Mima, what is mitigation?
Mitigation is basically actions you take in order to cut down your emissions, to alleviate the problem of global warming, or hopefully, solve it entirely.
And do you do that in the Philippines?
Well, we try to. We have a Renewable Energy Act that seeks to increase the renewable energy in our energy mix. So we're currently at 26 or 28%.
Wow.
And we're hopefully we're going to increase that by a feed-in tariff that we have, so that investors can be enticed to invest or put up their own solar or wind power plants.
That's great. Because it's interesting, a lot of people here think that we only talk about mitigation in the UNFCCC. But how important is mitigation really in this space?
Well, mitigation is very important. It's essential to, as I said, cutting down emissions and hopefully solving this whole problem that we're been talking about for the past, 21, 22 years. But it's not the only important or the most important thing in the negotiations. It's as important as the other elements, such as adaptation, for example.
Really? Is there a link between adaptation and mitigation?
Yeah, I think there's a very strong link for someone coming from a developing country who is, a country that's very vulnerable to climate change. It's important to be able to adapt in order for your mitigation efforts to be effective.
So, I guess in the Philippines, are you already creating that link between adaptation and mitigation?
Well, again, we're trying to. Since, as I said, we're very vulnerable and our cities are always, being devastated by strong typhoons. What we're trying to do is essentially adapt the infrastructure that we have to these climate impacts, and these infrastructure we're trying to use also as mitigating efforts. For example, if you want to build more solar power plants in places that are very vulnerable to typhoons or climate change impacts, those solar power plants have to be adapt and have to be strong against typhoons and other climate change impacts. So mitigation very much connected to adaptation, in a sense that for them to be effective, they have to adapt to all these impacts that we're having.
They need to be together.
Yeah.
And is that something that you found come up in the negotiations? Is there a move to try and link adaptation and mitigation?
Yeah, I think so. I think developing countries, especially the very vulnerable ones, are trying to do that, to link, to establish a strong and very clear link between mitigation, adaptation, and also finance as well, because these are all very much interconnected. I mean, for developing countries, they can't do one without the other.
Yeah.
So they can't just mitigate without thinking about the future and other climate change impacts, and they can't do it without money as well.
Sure. So I guess going forward to Paris, is there kind of any hope you have that adaptation will be linked to mitigation, or is there kind of a goal in mind?
Well, I hope, essentially we still don't know what Paris is going to look like, but I hope it's a well-balanced text that's very equitable for everyone, that's very holistic. But I also wanted to spur some on-the-ground action, because, while we're all up here talking about it in a very wide and very international sense, it's the people on the ground that are really experiencing all these impacts. So hopefully we do have some sort of big picture, but also that includes the smaller picture on the ground.
And check out the rest of the blog. There's a lot of links to adaptation and mitigation, and the link that we have here in the UNFCCC. And check in with us next time, where we're going to talk about legal form.